You've interacted with many more entrepreneurs than I have, I would say, at this point. One of the questions that I get constantly that you might have a better answer for, because I don't have a great answer for it right now, is when do I know, how do I discern between an idea that I should keep persisting with despite many, 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 many rejections versus a bad idea that I should abandon that is getting the same type of rejection, but that I'm equally enthusiastic about? And that's a very wordy way to put it, but I get some version of that question all the time. How would you answer that?
Well, first we have to scroll back. There's a difference between freelancers and entrepreneurs. Most people who are independent are freelancers. They get paid when they work. They do good work and get paid for it. A few people are entrepreneurs, building a business bigger than themselves, a business that makes them money when they sleep, a business where they don't actually do the work that the customer is buying, and a business that they can sell one day. So, we look at Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison doesn't code at Oracle. Larry Ellison doesn't make most of the sales calls. What does Larry Ellison do, actually? His job is to think about something that needs to be done and hire someone else to do it over and over again, building something bigger than himself. So the first thing I would say to the person who's confused is, well, are you an entrepreneur or a freelancer? If you're an entrepreneur, then you have signed up for a series of choices and challenges. And again, start with selling something people want to buy. There's no reason to try to invent a need when there are so many needs and wants that are unfilled, right? So people didn't wake up 10 years ago and say, I need an Uber. But they did wake up 10 years ago and say, I need an easy, inexpensive way to get from A to B.
Correct.
Once you could go to someone and say, I have that, people would say, I want that. But if you're just saying, I'm really clever, I know what you should want, and when you tell people what it is, they don't want it, you're either talking to the wrong people or you made the wrong thing. So the blog post I point people to the most is called First 10. And it is a simple theory of marketing that says, tell 10 people, show 10 people, share it with 10 people who already trust you and already like you. If they don't tell anybody else, it's not that good and you should start over. And if they do tell other people, you're on your way.
And for those people who hear your description of entrepreneur and they say, that's what I want. That is what I want. I want to be an entrepreneur. They currently have 9-to-5 job or maybe more. Maybe it's an 80 to 100 hour a week management consultant job. Who knows? This is also a fan question, and they desperately want to go from wantrepreneur to entrepreneur. The specific question was, if I had a sticky note to put on my computer to help me make that jump, what would it say? Do you have any thoughts? And you can rephrase the question if you'd like, or rip it to shreds.
Well, let's pick two different kinds of entrepreneurs. One kind of entrepreneur, you say, whose need am I satisfying today? And can I assemble assets where I satisfy it in a defensible way so I don't have to be the cheapest? And by that I mean, I've written about this, snow shoveling, right? We know that there's a need for snow shoveling. We know that if you spend time and effort, you can arrange a team of 10 snow shovelers who don't have the initiative you have. And you can use existing almost free technology to assign the snow shovelers to where they need to go. And you're not going to win because you're the cheapest snow shoveling company. You're going to win because you can get to customers faster and better and more efficiently. That's a very straightforward form of entrepreneurship. It is available to everyone without an enormous amount of talent or artistic creativity required. Because you just make a list of the 1,000 things around you that people need and want. You make a list of the kinds of assets and connections you can build, and you go do it. And you do it, and you do it, and you do it until you're big enough. The other kind, to quote Michael Schrage here, is to say, the purpose of my business is to change people. To change them from something into something else. And this is the kind of business that we remember generations later. So Harley Davidson, my favorite example, changed disrespected, disconnected outsiders into respected family members, insiders. That's what you get when you pay $12,000 for a motorcycle. Because if all you want is transport, buy a Suzuki. And the way to think about it is no one gets a Suzuki tattoo. You can decide that you want to be tattoo worthy, that you want to change a population in a way that makes you indispensable. That kind of entrepreneurship requires insight at a different level. There's nothing unattainable about it. I encourage people to go do it, but know that it is a higher stakes game than being the person who applies systems thinking to an existing clear need.
This is going to seem
that's a big post-it, by the way.
It's a big post-it. Or maybe are there any check boxes that people could use to determine if they should not become an entrepreneur? Or because if you look at let's just say the narrative on the covers of business magazines, it seems like to the untrained eye perhaps or the trained eye for that matter, that everyone is being encouraged to become an entrepreneur and start their own company. And I'm curious to hear if you, in what cases do you actively discourage people from starting their own company?
The first thing I would say is the discerning reader of business magazines differentiates between the articles who are written for people who are voyeurs and the articles that are written for you. And 98% of the covers aren't written for you. You should skip those. You should skip the articles that lionize people without actually explaining anything about them other than they are different and better than you. That said, we've gone this far without talking about Steve Pressfield. The resistance runs deep, and the same thing that causes writer's block is what causes entrepreneurial block.
And just for people listening,
yes.
Stephen Pressfield, The War of Art, and among other books, very, very worth reading.
Right. The War of Art is one of those books, at least for me, when I finally was exposed to it, I said, why wasn't I informed? Why did it take this long for this book to land on my desk? There aren't very many books I could say like that. Most of my books don't fall into that category. Your books don't, they're in the world. You find our books. Steve's book was hidden in some little corner, and I'm super glad I found it. I tracked him down. I published the sequel called Do the Work. And now he's the publisher of that book. But reading The War of Art is really essential, painful and essential. Anyway, people get entrepreneurial block for only one reason. It is not because they are not qualified. It is not because they are not passionate. It is because they are afraid. And you need to be clear with yourself about what you are afraid of, why you are afraid, and whether you care enough to dance with that fear, because it will never go away.